Rowe is pastor of Central United Methodist Church. So, yeah.
Well, it's great to be among a lot of friends. I bring you greetings from Central and from all of those preparing to welcome 25,000 people to Detroit in June of this year, June 22nd, for the Social Forum, the U.S. Social Forum. I hope if you don't know about it, you will inquire, because we're going to be hosting people like this, like you, from all over the world to talk about social justice and combine with each other. I thank you for giving me this 30 minutes to introduce Kathy Kelly. And Michael, I had one more opportunity not too long ago, several years ago, to welcome people for the Cardinal in that case, when we all came to Central, not for Voices in the Wilderness, but for Voices of Hope for lesbian and gay Christians. And for whatever reason, Central was privileged to be that host. And as long as there are people like Jerry and other folks who are in this audience, there will always be a Catholic Committee for Social Justice, because you're here. It is impossible, you know, in 3 minutes to even recite the awards that have been given to this 3-time nominee for the Nobel Peace Prize. But it is important to notice some of the names attached to some of those thank yous, like the Chaldean Iraqi American Association for protecting their families and putting her body in the way, for the Cranbrook Peace Foundation, or for names like Oscar Romero, Daniel Berrigan, Thomas Merton, all people who put not just their words but their bodies in between harm and innocent people. And I don't guess I want to even say innocent people. I want to say all people who are children of God, because we will never get to peace by killing. Among those awards is a teacher for peace, and she certainly does that. Not just teaching from classrooms or pulpits, but putting her body in harm's way, whether it's Baghdad or Gaza or Pakistan. She says one way to stop the next war is to continue to tell the truth about this one. And she certainly does that. Unfortunately, it isn't just one war. We have several to choose between. I was privileged to participate in one of the 70 delegations that Kathy and Voices organized to go across the no-fly zone into Baghdad and take medical supplies and food, and to intentionally break the sanctions that were killing, at that point in our history, 500,000 children. And we were funding the U.S. sitting around a table deciding to block even the sending of simple chemicals that would allow water to be safe, so every glass of water became a death threat because of the U.S. and the UN sanctions. 70 delegations. Kathy returned to Baghdad shortly thereafter, spent 2 months there with many other activists, putting her body in the way, trying to protect people. Amazing. And then when the ground troops came, she offered dates and water to the troops as they came in. We used to only offer flowers. We can't eat them, so she's been physically and emotionally threatened and abused. A threat that fines that she has refused to pay would probably fund the Department of Peace. I asked her what I should say about her in my 30 minutes, and she said, just tell him I'm an ex-con. Somebody has said that the only time that Kathy rests and writes of all these experiences is when she's in jail. Many of you were with her when she was arrested for demonstrating against the School of the Americas and spent months in jail as a result of that. Time and time again, Kathy Kelly speaks not just with the words from pulpits like this one, and her speaking is threatening to us because it isn't talking about Kathy Kelly, what she's done in the past that threatens us. It's that she might tell us what she's going to do next. And then she might invite us to join her. And then we'd have to decide if we're going to go or think up another reason why we can't. And, to be doing this, as we approach Palm Sunday is just an amazing thing to me. Because that's what Palm Sunday is about, the two processions, the Caesar's army coming in one door to intimidate people because they're celebrating escape from slavery, and they don't want anybody getting the idea that you could escape from Rome. And here's Jesus on a donkey coming in the other door, and we have to decide which procession we're going to be following. And on the back of the donkey is already a bumper sticker that says, "I'm already against the next war." And so here we are in her presence again. She's trying to decide which procession we will be part of, and our silence will not save us. Maybe instead of just talking about spirituality, Kathy, we could talk about Afghanistan. We could talk about what we need to do next. We could put all of us in the position of having to decide which procession we will be in. We have this wonderful, not just challenge, but opportunity to do again what I might not have done the last time I had the chance. That might be resurrection. And every time you're in the presence of Kathy Kelly, there's a decision to be made. Which procession will we be in? Let's welcome this as a great opportunity to have a chance to renew our chance to be people of peace, not just with our words, but with our body. Help me welcome this prophetic voice, this amazing woman, Kathy Kelly.
Processions and the bumper sticker on the donkey and all the goodness you bring to our lives. This is a year to the day since many of us were together to commemorate the life and the wonder of Rita Mary Olszewski. And Rita Mary loved lighthouses. And what a wonderful thing that today, this evening, everybody's called on for Earth Hour to shut off the lights for an hour. And I think this is also a time when we can commemorate the loss of a light in our lives, Bishop Matthiessen, who so bravely in his last article in U.S. Catholic called for nuclear disarmament, called for the United States to disarm its nuclear arsenal and everywhere in the world that disarmament. And I really believe, I'm insanely optimistic. I think that we may be starting to move toward that time when war itself will be consigned to the dustbin of history. Well, it's been, for me, a time to feel quite grateful for this invitation, for the chance to be in the upper room at Jerry Selman's home, for the guidance that came from the Pax Christi State Council in asking me, please, Kathy, try to talk about your own journey. And of course, that sends you back into memories, and the memories that we learn the most from are the most difficult ones. So I'd like to share a story with you that I'm sure I've never told any audience before. And it's a hard story. It's the stuff of psychoanalysis, really, but in a way I think perhaps it's germane and to the point. I'm going back to my 6th grade years. I was an insanely pious child. Let me just say that during the Lenten season when I was a kid, I had given up Twinkies, cartoons, television, donuts, everything. I'd run out of things to give up, and I pored over the lives of the saints and the lives of the nuns, and if I could have found a hair shirt, that would have been just fine. But anyway, I got it in my head that I could kneel on my knuckles on the tiled bathroom floor for baby Jesus. It was kind of crazy. I remember my mother unexpectedly coming up to the bathroom and opening the door and seeing her little 8-year-old kneeling on her knuckles. And she said, "Jesus, Mary and Joseph, how could you be so odd and be mine?" It was early warning signal, something's going to be different about me. But that piety sometimes took a turn that wasn't so good. And so I do remember being in 6th grade and out on the playground on a bright, sunny spring day, 2 of the 8th graders kissed each other. And it went all through the 6th, 7th, and 8th graders. That was a scandal. And I, for some reason I cannot tell you, while we were all seated together with Father Tansy, I think it was the 6th and 7th grade girls, and we were encouraged to just give this young parish priest our questions, or our questions, I guess. I stood up and I asked him some question about the 2 people who kissed each other on the playground, as though I were some sort of little police person pointing a finger, and by the time I'd sat back down in my chair, the blush had risen to my scalp and I knew I'd done something wrong. And I've been digging back in my memory, trying to recall this, and what I remember is that I went home, I told my mother what I'd done, I cried, and my mother, who had a very good skill, almost like that moral jujitsu, of beckoning someone into maturity but giving you some balance, she didn't make me feel more shame, but she let me know that I'd done something wrong and an apology was in order. And I can't remember whether I found that young woman and apologized to her. But the reason I want to dwell on that story is because, yes, it is important at young ages and throughout our life, in the further invention of nonviolence, to cultivate the ability to break silence, the ability to stand up, the ability to say when you know you can't be an innocent bystander, to say that you're witnessing something that's unspeakably wrong. But how very terrible if we haven't carefully examined. How very terrible if we create shame and humiliation and put down and hurt because we haven't prayed over or reflected over or thought with others over whether or not perhaps we're speaking out of our own fears and insecurities, as I certainly did the day that I labeled the person who kissed someone in the playground. It was much, much later, and really guided by much of what I learned from a more maturing understanding of the New Testament. Jesus so much wanting to break taboos and say everybody and nobody out, that I began to realize that there's an artificial shortage of love in this world. It's a shortage we've created every time we've accommodated anyone who wants to say that you can't have love if you're a Catholic and you're a Protestant. Remember that, some of you? Or you can't have love if you're both of the same gender. Or you can't have love if one of you is old and one of you is young. You can't have love and intimacy if you had it once in your life, and that's it. You can never have love and intimacy. Who says? And so, when I recall that readiness that I had to be a judge, to be the judge and jury and the executor, I feel great sadness still that I had that within me, but I feel grateful for having had the chance to be nurtured through that time and still hang on to the idea that speaking up in itself can be a good thing. I think one of the next times when an act of conscience was something that I thought hard about actually actually didn't happen in relation to the civil rights movement, even though I grew up in an intensely racist neighborhood. It didn't happen in relation really to the Vietnam War, even though kids sitting next to me in my high school classes were drafted to go and fight in that war. What woke me up were the novels written by people who had emerged from the concentration camps. Night and Fog, the film. The Last of the Just by Andre Schwartzbart. Novels by Bernard Malamud, by Levi Salom. And I wondered how could people have been so close to the Nazism developing? How could they have perhaps even smelled the burning flesh in the death camps that were nearby and not speak out? And that did at least form the emotional grooves in my psyche and my emotional makeup that I never wanted to be sitting on the sidelines, on my hands, in the face of an unspeakable evil and not take action. Well, it was a long time before I began actually to take action, and some of my maturation, I was really very fortunate, happened in a high school. I was a teacher. I sometimes don't know why anybody ever paid me to be the one that was going through that process of growing up, but I was very, very grateful for those years of being a teacher. I have to say that once you've learned how to be a high school study teacher, it never goes away. So I'm going to tell you another standing up story that has a lot of the high school study teacher in it. Ed mentioned that I had been at Fort Benning with others, and I had come back actually very recently from having been in Baghdad during the shock and awe bombing, which made me feel when I came back home that I should take a stand against U.S. militarism. I felt that I was coming back to a place where I could speak up and raise my voice in ways that people I'd sat next to in the hospitals whose bodies were torn apart, or women I'd been with who would be bereaved and broken forever. They couldn't speak. I wanted to try to bring that voice, and at Fort Benning at that time, training was also happening for MPs who would go over to places like Abu Ghraib in Iraq. So I was very, very ready to cross that line, but to be honest, on the day that I crossed the line, I wasn't paying much more attention to the arrest process, the booking process, than I would have paid to going through the security line at O'Hare Airport. You might say it wasn't my first season out, and it was almost kind of a routine thing. But I noticed when we got into a room about this size, we were all handcuffed. I think there were some 30 of us arrested that day. Many were nuns and priests. Most were older than me. And I was instructed to go to Station J. When I got there were 5 people and one with a clipboard, and it almost looked like a training exercise. But something unusual about this processing was that the young people accomplishing the processing were screaming the orders. Raise your arms, spread your legs further. And a very aggressive search was going on, hands inside of clothing, squeezing, shoving. And at one point, when I was told to raise my arms higher, I turned to the person to my right. The high school study teacher came back, and I said with a tone, "Can you help me understand why you're screaming at me?" "Don't say anything! Keep your eyes glued on the officer in front of you! Raise your arms higher! Spread your legs further! Lift your left leg!" And I lost my balance, but another balance came back to me. And as I was watching this hands inside of clothing, screaming, shoving, happening to Sister Cynthia Brinkman and other people, then I knew, I thought, I know too much to go along with this. So, very quietly, I said, "I'm sorry, I can't cooperate with this any longer." Whoa, I was down on the floor in a second. I had a black eye from the impact. My wrists were tied, my ankles were tied, my wrists and ankles were tied together, and someone about the size of Ed Rowe was kneeling on me, referring to me with an expletive, and I thought, I'm not going to be able to breathe. I better say something. So I said, "Excuse me, but you're hurting me and I can't breathe." Nothing. First, the person didn't get off of me. And so I said again, "Look, I'm really sorry, but this hurts and I can't breathe." Nothing. And then I thought, I'm going to lose consciousness. So I said, "Look, I got 4 lung collapses in the past, and I can't breathe. That did it. The person kneeling on me got up off of me, and I was fine. I was okay. But a bit shaken. Now, I have to ask you to be sure and stay with me through this next bit, because, you know, they have to take your photograph as the next part of the booking procedure, but they also take the clips out of your hair, so the hair was in front of my face, and I looked like the shaggy dog. And I'm still hogtied, right? So that propped me up, and at that point, the youngster who had carried me under my right armpit said to me, "Excuse me, ma'am, but in order to take your picture, we have to move the hair from in front of your face. Will that be all right?" And I said, "Oh yeah, that's fine." And then ever so gently, he squeezed my shoulder. "I know those cuffs are real tight, ma'am. We're going to get them off of you as soon as we can." Now, I needed that. And isn't that how it always goes? Just when you're beginning to wonder if the lights have gone out on humanity, there is a reassertion of gentle kindness. And I will remember that young man till the end of my days. But it's important for me also, and I think for all of us, to recognize the training that was going on that afternoon at Fort Benning while the nuns and the priests and I and others were being processed. It's important because that training gets engraved, and that training has been an export from the United States to other countries. And I think right now, the time to break silence hangs on all of us with regard to atrocities on a par with the My Lai massacre that are happening shrouded in silence today in Afghanistan. A number of us walked from Chicago to the Republican National Convention in 2008. My feet stopped hurting in November. It was a very good effort. And on the way, we stopped at Fort McCoy in Wisconsin. And at Fort McCoy, a model village is constructed inside the fort to look like an Afghan or an Iraqi village. And that's where the soldiers practice kicking in the door, turning over all the cabinets, emptying out all the drawers and the closets, ripping the mattresses apart, going in with dogs and flashlights, and then hog-tying the people inside, and taking men away in a pickup truck perhaps for hours or days or months or even years of interrogation. Now, I would like to go through a chronology of sorts about instances that I've been trying to keep track of, which to me represent atrocities that have been happening in Afghanistan. And for the first one, I'd like to go all the way back to the April 7th report in Agence France Presse, 2009, in the village of Khost. There was a man who worked with the Americans. He was a brigadier officer in the artillery corps of the Afghan army, and he was away from home. His name is Awal Khan, and he lived in a village, a small village, called Ali Dawla. Now, someone had gotten information that was bad information, bad intelligence. Maybe it was gotten through torturing someone. Or maybe someone paid money to get the information, and a desperate person gave the information because he or she needed the money. But they got the information that in the actual home of Awal Khan were, quote, bad guys. And so the U.S. military did what they had been trained to do. They went to the home next door, and they burst in, they went upstairs, and they overtook the rooftop. And then they went into the home of Awal Khan, believing they were going into the home of bad guys. They burst in. The people inside were so terrified, they ran up to their own rooftop. As soon as they emerged out on the rooftop, the soldiers on the opposite rooftop opened fire. They killed Awal Khan's wife, his brother, his 17-year-old daughter, Naja, his 15-year-old son, Anna, and then his cousin, who lived 3 doors down, had heard this racket. She came running. She was 9 months pregnant. They opened fire on her. The babe in her womb was riddled with bullets and died. And then Commander Craig Jones learned of the atrocity, learned that they had the wrong house, that they had the house of one of their colleagues, And he had to write the letter. We're sorry. We're so very sorry. And I believe it. Now, I mentioned wondering about our German brothers and sisters in the build-up to World War II. Let me tell you a much more current story from Germany. In the province of Kunduz, and this occurred on September 4th, the Taliban had hijacked 2 big oil tankers. They were driving them, but went off the road, and the oil tankers went into muddy territory and sank. They couldn't push them out, they couldn't pull them out. I would imagine a lot of the Taliban people thought it's time for us to get out of here. But as would happen in any very poor place, the locals get the word somehow. Hey, free petrol, get the largest container you can, bring the kids, and you can siphon off this petrol. It's just sitting there, sinking in the mud. And so many, many dozens of people had congregated. A German outpost commander got word that there was a burgeoning number of people in a spot not too far away, and he didn't know about the oil tankers that had sunk in the mud. He was anxious that maybe these people were gathering to launch an attack on his outpost should he attack them first. And he thought about it. He made his decision. He called in United States air support, and United States Army gunships came flying in. They attacked the locals with bullets and with mortars and with rockets, and 124 people were killed. The German defense minister on September 6, 2009, went on national TV to tell the German people that they had had it on good authority that these people who had gathered were actually insurgents and that the attack was warranted. What he didn't know was that video footage had already been released from an F-15 American aircraft that showed that quite clearly, unmistakably, these were locals who were siphoning off the oil. They had no weapons. They had no means to attack. There was such a hue and cry in Germany, such an outcry, such an outrage, that by November 27th, the German defense minister had to resign. Now, they made him the Minister of Education, so not all stories work out so perfectly. And 2 top German generals, representatives to NATO, also had to resign. Otherwise, the German public would not keep silent on this story. Now, it would be even better if I could tell you that Germany decided to withdraw all of its troops from NATO in Afghanistan. But one thing I have to confess to you is that when I first read about this story, I saw it as well. You know, it's a pretty everyday occurrence, isn't it? And when I read that the Germans had raised so much of a hue and cry, my first response was, gee, I wonder what it would be like to live in a country where people did that. So what a change we've experienced, where we almost, as a normalcy, learn of atrocities with a kind of shrug of dismay, but we don't speak out, we don't break the silence, we don't take to the streets. December 26th, and I must be Pastor Dari, I'm getting all of this from the New York Times. December 26th, in a place called Kunar, United States troops got information about a bomb-making squad that was making improvised explosive devices, horrible devices, these sticky bombs that have caused so much death and destruction. And so the U.S. troops went to the home where they'd been told this factory existed. They burst in, they pulled young men who were sleeping out of their beds, handcuffed them, and shot them in the brains, executing 7 of them immediately. Now this is a war crime on several counts. On February 24th, the United States military had completed its investigation and acknowledged, yes, the villagers were right. They were all schoolboys and 1 neighboring shepherd who had stayed overnight in that household. 7 youngsters shot to death in cold blood. And Hamid Karzai, 2 weeks ago, the president of Afghanistan, gave each of the families $2,000. On February 12th, in an area called Pachna. There were people celebrating the naming of a new baby. It's a big celebration in the Afghan culture in the rural areas. And it was 3:30 in the morning. There were about 35 people in the house, 3 musicians. One man went out to use the restroom. He came back into the house. Somebody had shown a flashlight in his face. He said he was sure they were Taliban, but no, it was people from a U.S. military group. It's not certain yet whether it was the actual military or whether these were security contractors, but they opened fire on the group. They killed 3 people who were women. One was a pregnant woman, one was a teenager. They killed 2 men. And the villagers said that because the people had been forced to stand outside barefoot for 2 hours in the cold with no medical assistance for the people that were wounded, 2 of the people died, one of them a young girl who was soon to be married. The United Nations came out with a report condemning this atrocity on March 16. I could go on and on. The convoy that was moving along between Kandahar going up to Kabul, and there were 3 cars. The lead car was a SUV, the back car was a Land Cruiser. People that were in the cars were shot on all of a sudden. They were going to market, and then they were going to go up to Kabul for medical care. The women in the second car jumped out. They waved their kabutas, their long scarves, trying to say, we're civilians, to no avail. 27 people were killed, 13 wounded. The United States had General McChrystal go on national TV in Afghanistan and dubbed into the main languages of Pashto and Dari. He gave his formal apology. And we've heard it again and again and again. We're sorry. We're so very sorry. But as Ed Rowe said to you, many of us went over to Iraq and we sat at the bedsides of women in Iraq and we murmured, we're sorry. We're so very sorry. I know something about saying it over and over and over again. And if it is not coming with a concomitant desire and passion to put an end to atrocities, something goes very, very wrong. And I think part of the problem is that we don't feel the sorrow here in the United States. We don't feel at a deep enough level the sorrow of the war that's going on. We're collaborators, we're very much a part of enabling it, but the sorrow over it seems to be elusive at this point in our lives. There's much more that I would like to say about this, but I think perhaps one thing I could do is to go back into those childhood years again. There was a song that we were taught when I was a kid. When Johnny comes marching home again, hurrah, hurrah. It actually is predated by another song. It was written originally for Irish soldiers returning from the Seychelles who'd been conscripted into fighting in that war. And it's a song of great sorrow over the suffering caused by wars. So I would like to share that with you. Maybe you'd want to sing along. Where are your eyes that look so mild, Haru, Haru? Where are your eyes that look so mild, Haru, Haru? Where are your eyes that look so mild, when my heart you first beguiled? Oh, why did you run from me and the child? Oh, Johnny, I hardly knew you. Where are your legs that used to run? Hurroo, hurroo. Where are your legs that used to run? Hurroo, hurroo. Where are your legs that used to run before you went to carry a gun? I believe your dancing days are done. Oh, Johnny, I hardly knew you. The song goes on to speak about Johnny, body torn apart and dismembered. You're an eyeless, legless, armless, chickenless egg. You'll have to be put out with a bowl to beg. And the young woman assures him his Peggy will never leave him. But the final verse, they're rolling out the guns again, hurroo, hurroo. They're rolling out the guns again, hurroo, hurroo. They're rolling out the guns again, but they'll never take our daughters and sons again. No, they'll never take our daughters and sons again. Oh, Johnny, I'm swearing to you. In the Gospel of Mark, there's a young boy who wants to accompany his Jesus. Jesus is so alone in Mark's Gospel, he dies on the cross, shouting out, Eli, Eli, lema sabachthani, my God, why have you forsaken me? His mother and his brothers had come to him, thought he was a little crazy, and tried to take him home early on in the Gospel. His own disciples had made themselves scarce when the danger rose higher. Even the women who had followed him, they were gone. But just this one young teenager stays with his Jesus. And he's only wearing a loincloth, probably a long scarf like this wrapped around his body. But then at one point, maybe he heard that procession of the soldiers and mentioned the spears ready, the boots clinking on the cobblestone, and he decides this is it. He's going to make a run for it. He runs away naked as the day he was born. The soldiers have grabbed his loincloth. They don't get him. They get the loincloth, and he's naked. And nakedness was a sign of shame and humiliation in the ancient Near Eastern world, just as much as it would be a sign of shame at Abu Ghraib, or the Buka compound, or Bagram prison. But when the women come to roll away the stone, inside the tomb is a young man, completely dignified, all grown up. Maybe it's Mark's community trying to write themselves into the story. And the young man says, the one whom you seek is not here. He is risen. Go tell everyone, and don't be afraid. Go tell everyone, and don't be afraid. It is our blessing. It is our moment to speak up, to break the silence, to be the inheritors of the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King's words. When he spoke out against the Vietnam War, his colleagues, his friends, people who had worked so hard with him, many of them said, Martin, don't do this. You're going too far. We've gone too far with the civil rights movement to get mixed in with this anti-war movement. It'll just dilute the energies. It'll cause confusion. Don't give that speech. And the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King waited a long time before finally he could not keep quiet any longer. And he named the speech, Beyond Vietnam, a time to break silence. And he had the audacity to tell the listeners in the Riverside Church that the call to love your neighbor meant you had to love the Viet Cong. How shall we update that today for our time? And so the challenge to try to understand the humanity of people who are part of Taliban groups. Even though we may ourselves believe that our progression in morals and values is so vastly different from people who follow fundamentalist Islam, we must try hard to understand who are the Taliban groups, who are the people who join those groups, how has poverty affected their lives, and we must try to understand how are we seen by people in Afghanistan and in Pakistan when we hover over their areas with our very sophisticated unmanned aerial vehicles that can fire Hellfire missiles into their homes and drop 500-pound bombs on their cities and villages. How are we seen? We must try to understand what is the experience of people who perhaps have meant us no harm, but whose lives are harmed every day. And we must understand that our intelligence is faulty often. Can you imagine? I'll detour just a little bit. I was in Gaza during the 2009 Operation Cast Lead bombing. And once every 11 minutes, a bomb exploded. Once every 11 minutes at night, from 11 till 3, then there was a lull. And then again from 3:30 till 6 in the morning. A bomb exploded once every 11 minutes. Many areas of Gaza have been reduced to rubble. When we went to the hospital, doctors, you usually expect a doctor to be cool, calm, and collected. The doctors were shaking. They were traumatized. And one doctor, who was a neurosurgeon, said we really do not know all what was used against us. Just we know that for 22 days the world watched. And another doctor told me, when you go back to the United States, tell them this. It was Americans who paid for these weapons. Well, there was a doctor who had volunteered to work in a Gaza hospital during the Operation Cast Lead. His name was Dr. Al-Balawi. And when the Operation Cast Lead was over, he was pulled in for interrogation by Jordanian authorities. He's a Jordanian doctor. And after that, he said goodbye to his family. He went to Pakistan. He became what's called a counter-agent, a double agent. And he made friends with people who were organizing to resist the United States occupation and attacks. He got in with the Masood clan. Now, I mentioned those United States drones. There were 15 attacks trying to kill Beytullah Masood. And 15 times the United States drone attacks got the wrong house, the wrong police station, the wrong guy. On the 16th attack that got Beytullah Masood, he was on top of the rooftop of his in-laws' home, both of whom were medical doctors, and they were trying to treat him. He was hooked up to an IV machine. His wife was at his side. This time they could prove it. The Hellfire missiles were fired, and Beytullah Masood and his mother-in-law and father-in-law and wife were all killed. The military refers to these attacks as warheads to the foreheads. And if anyone survives, they're called scorchers. Now, Beytullah Masood was replaced by a man named Hakmullah Masood. And Hakmullah Masood, by reputation, was more ruthless, more dangerous, and more media savvy than his very dangerous predecessor. Hakmullah Masood collaborated with Dr. Al-Balawi, who was so altered for life by what he'd seen and heard in the Operation Cast Lead in Gaza. And Dr. Al-Balawi must have made a decision that he would turn his life over to becoming a weapon of mass destruction. This is a horrid reality. But you know, the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King said we must have tender hearts, tough minds. So let's use both as we examine what happened in this dreadful story. Dr. Al-Balawi, working as a double agent, began to feed to the United States CIA officers information about HVTs, high-value targets, but they were really people that Hakmullah Masood wanted to eliminate because they were his rivals, or they were people whom he felt were expendables. These are horrid things that happen in times of war. So Dr. Al-Balawi is earning more and more trust and confidence. The CIA agents believe they've got a very good informant, someone they can talk with, someone they can trust, when really he's feeding them information that goes directly in line with the goals of their top rival, Hakmullah Masood. And then Dr. Al-Balawi says to the CIA agents, "You must meet with me. I have some very valuable information to give you. I want to sit down and talk with all of you together." They make the arrangement to meet together. He comes into their compound. He's wearing the suicide vest. He pulls the string. And 7 CIA agents and 2 military and the Jordanian doctor, Dr. Al-Balawi, were all killed instantly. And with our tender hearts, yes, our arms must imagine what it's like for those arms that ache for loved ones who will never return. 2 of those CIA agents were in their 30s. But our tough minds, if the CIA agents, some of the brightest and best and well-trained in the United States military, could not save their own lives, couldn't save themselves from the ghastly outcome with their intelligence, should we, as a people, be relying on this kind of intelligence and information to steer forward. What the drones can never tell us, what many of the paid informants won't tell us, what our media doesn't tell us, is the crucial information that 850 children in Afghanistan die every single day. They don't tell us that a fourth of those children don't live beyond the age of 5 years old. They don't tell us that 60% of Afghanistan's children are malnourished. We don't learn that of the 34 provinces in Afghanistan today, 33 are controlled by shadow governments run by the Taliban. That David Petraeus' own counterintelligence manual assures that you have to have 600,000 troops on the ground to run a successful counterinsurgencies. Why are we in Afghanistan? Why are we pursuing a war that costs the United States public $2 billion a day? It costs $1 million to keep one United States soldier on the ground in Afghanistan for 1 year. Think of the ways that Detroit is suffering right now, cutbacks on needed services. Think of the hunger and the disease around the world. What possible right have we to be spending $2 billion a day on the country where the United Nations tells us it's the worst place in the world into which a child can be born? How shall we follow in that procession that follows the nonviolent Jesus if we don't raise a hue and a cry consistently, vigorously, nonviolently, to say this war must end? And brothers and sisters, if we can convince the U.S. public that this war is wrongful, and the U.S. public has already soured on the Iraq war and it was horrid, and how dare anyone think that the surge was a success?
Amen.
And people don't look back on the Vietnam War and talk about that as a success. And there were 58,000 killed in Korea. And I think we're even ready to reach the maturity of being able to question whether World War II was a good war arising as it did out of the horrors of World War I and ushering us all into the nuclear age. And so what I'm suggesting is that we might be able to reach that tipping point where people would recognize war is always counterproductive, always futile. War is not the answer in any way. We don't have the moral authority or the financial resources to wage these horrible wars that we're involved in now. And we may begin to reach that point where the teachings of Jesus, the teachings of so many other prophetic religious figures, could guide our loved ones, especially the children who will inherit the problems that we've created through these terrible wars, could guide them to a way out, to a way through, to a way beyond war. And so I think back to that kiss on the playground. And I hope that we can celebrate an intimacy, a kiss, if you will, between the love of Jesus, the nonviolent Jesus, those first 300 years of Christianity that were bathed in nonviolence. Let us kiss that reality, let us find it our greatest joy, and let us go forward to build a nonviolent world. Thank you.